So the first question I do have is, how do I set up healthy boundaries if I identify foolishness in a friend?
That's a good question. Firstly, I just want to say that chapter, it is 1 Timothy chapter 4, which wasn't marked, so if you want to mark it in your notes, it was 1 Timothy chapter 4. Okay, so how do I set up boundaries? Which is very important that I do set up boundaries if I see foolishness in a friend, because I understand that, we just don't want to, we don't want to bash everyone out of our lives, but we have to make sure that our interaction with that person is not input into my life. That's where the boundary line must be. Because if that person, let's say that person talks filthy, and they talk that all the way, and now suddenly I find myself thinking those words, now and then I'm saying that word, it means it's having an input in my life. Then guys, the more worse it gets, the more distance I need. Okay, so that means maybe that I don't spend daily time with that friend anymore. Maybe I can still try and spend once a week, or maybe once in 2 weeks, depending on where it is. So I had a Christian friend that was with me at Bible school, when I was still at Bible school. He was a very good, very clever. But as life moved on, we started moving a bit apart because he started sending me things to read and all of that, which wasn't really very godly. I could see it's moving in a way away from what I believe. And then there was a lot of other things that happened. And there was a time then when I said, I'm not going to have contact because this is clouding my mind. This is clouding my heart. This is creating questions. It's creating doubt within me. So the point is that if that person is really very influential on your life, there is places where you have to say, I'm drawing a total line. But I can't do that for you. You have to determine where that line is. But space is always a good answer. I need space. Okay, just like we need to give our brain some rest. We also need our influence from the other person. We need to give that some time and space. So you need to determine how much time and space is needed for that. That doesn't mean that you can't pray for that person. You can pray. If there's something in church, and especially public things, is nice. That's the place where you invite them to. It's not having a coffee alone situation, but okay, we have a seminar you want to come with. You want to come with on Sunday morning to church. It's public. It's open. That person is not going to stand here and curse because it's church. Those are the places where you can have interaction with a person like that, is by inviting them. But if they invite you, that's why you have a diary. I've got a prayer appointment.
For that friend.
For that friend, yes.
Okay, next question. How can you see if a person with a foolish history had really changed their ways?
Over time and the fruit. Again, we've seen the pointers to foolishness. So if a person say, I have changed, give them some time and see. If the pointers to foolishness is still there, they haven't changed. If the pointers to wisdom is there, you can start trusting them. But again, it's a matter of space. So in the previous question, it's about creating space. Now this is maybe about closing space, but over a period of time. Because trust is something that's earned. A good name is something that's earned. You don't get a good name just because it falls out of the air. So again, wisdom is something that is portrayed over a period of time.
Thank you. Now I have a follow-up question to that first question. So I'm just going to repeat the first question. How can you see if a person with a foolish history had really changed their ways? And then the follow-up question is, how do you deal with this person in a workplace or a home if this person is in your daily life?
So is this the person that has changed or not?
This is the person that is acting foolishly.
That's still acting foolishly. Okay, so again, remember you can deal with things where you have control over. You can only deal with things that you have control over. Okay. I don't know if there's people here working for Eskom. Okay? So the point is, I can find ways to get electricity at my house. Now I put up solar and I have still some of Eskom coming in, whatever. I don't have any control over where they buy the coal and if they use it or not and how they manage and maintain the systems. I don't have control there. But where I do have control, there I make things as nice as possible for me and my family. So in your personal life, where you have control, there you can have distance, you can have all those things. In your workplace, if you don't have control, but you just need to work, I mean, you didn't appoint this person, let's say you work in a big factory like Mittal, you don't have control over who gets appointed. There, I think there's another set of wisdom that you need. That is where we have to learn the nuances of relationship. That is where we have to learn about how do I talk to people. So at the GLS, I think 2 years ago, there was a lady that talked about how can you set people up for the way you want them to react. So one of the things that I've learned from there is, I hope I don't have to send any of you a business email, but I would always start a business email. Thank you for your friendly service. Doesn't matter how bad the service is. I will say, thank you for your friendly service. Then people usually respond to that. The more I say that, the more friendly they get on the email. Okay, because I'm setting them up for that. So that's another set of something that maybe we can talk to in the future. If you don't have control over the other person, but you have to work with that person, then you have to find ways in wisdom how to deal in a good way so that it doesn't affect you here the whole time. But where you do have control, space, and all those things.
Thank you. I have a very short question with an example. Is all uncertainty folly? And the example is, sometimes you're in a season that not all is yet revealed, and it feels uncertain. Is that folly?
Yes. Okay, so again, remember, the only time when I move out of that uncertainty is when I'm with wisdom. Yeah? So if I'm uncertain with, should I marry this person or not? Or should I study this or not? It's not in itself foolishness, but it's in the space of foolishness because there's uncertainty. It's only when I get the clear answer that wisdom has come in. But remember that wisdom is always calling. We've seen that wisdom is calling. Wisdom is calling us out of the uncertainty, away from the foolishness. But as long as wisdom is calling, we can still pray. We can say, we can put that before God and before the Holy Spirit, saying, Lord, I'm uncertain. I acknowledge that I do not have enough wisdom yet to find a clear answer for this thing. So we cannot live always in certainty because we were not born in certainty. You live in uncertainty, you move to certainty. The world is a sinful place. So we are surrounded with a lot of uncertain things. But remember, the space of uncertainty is the birth ground for folly. So while I'm in uncertainty, I'm praying, Lord, what is the wisdom? What is the wisdom? And He says that He wants to give us the answer. So the reason why we maybe do not have the answer yet is because we don't have an asset that can be activated. So maybe coming out of the uncertainty is read a certain book and in that will be the clarity. Or do a certain course and in there you will find an answer. Go and study. Whatever. Do something. I don't think that uncertainty is just a place where we dwell. Oh, I'm just going to stay here. I'm uncertain. We must always try because it's the place of folly. We must try and get out of uncertainty. It doesn't always happen fast. Sometimes it takes time. But again, there should be that consistency. That's why I train myself. That's why I keep on praying. That's why I keep on asking. Because the point is always to get away from the areas of foolishness. Because again, in uncertainty is where I can trip. That's where I can fall. I don't want to be there. So it doesn't mean that I'm going to be out of it immediately. I need time. But what am I doing during that time? What am I doing to get from certainty to uncertainty? That's the question. It's not whether you are there. It's what am I doing to find the answer, to get out of it.
Thank you. The next question is, as a new Christian, when you realize you're in a place or a relationship or a partnership you shouldn't be in, where and how can we start to practically seek wisdom?
So if you're a new Christian and you're in a partnership or a relationship?
Yes, that you shouldn't be in.
Okay.
What and how should we start to do practically to seek wisdom?
Okay. So first of all, if you're a new Christian and you know you're in a relationship you shouldn't be, get out. That's the easy answer. Get out. Okay? Now, I know there's difficult things, maybe yes, but me and my wife, we've married for 20 years, we didn't serve the Lord. Now I came to the Lord, my husband doesn't serve the Lord. For that, I need to go and see a counselor. There's a whole lot of other rules that come into play. But just on the bottom, or wherever you want to put it, get out, if you can, of that relationship. Because a new Christian, you are at a very vulnerable place. You haven't developed the ability to stand yet. So you need good influence. Again, you will only get out what you put in. So if you put in negative, new Christian, you will only give out negative. So surround yourself with people, places, courses, music, YouTube articles, everything that builds me. Because what I put in is what I will get out. So I need to get out of that. So what was the second part of the question?
What can you do practically to get out? Or what can I do practically to seek wisdom?
Practically seek wisdom. It's build an asset table. Start reading. Now, which book should I read here? Well, that's the difficult thing. There's a lot on this table. You have to start somewhere. Pick up one. Start reading. Trust the Holy Spirit that He gives you. Lord, please help me to pick up the right one. Pick up a book, you know. You need to start somewhere. Start doing a course. Get a good friend. Get a counselor. Get a mentor. Go see the pastor. Start somewhere. Do things. Build your asset table. That's how you get wisdom. Ask God for wisdom.
Thank you. So that's all the questions we have on the QR code. So we want to ask you, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand. And Sapon will get to you. So Sapon, there at the back, there at the top. We have the first question. Sapon, will you just check if the mic is working?
Okay, so Taki, I hear when you say when you're in a workplace with one foolish person, how to handle that. Now, in my work situation, unfortunately, I'm working with a bunch of foolish people. And it's people in authority. I'm laughing now, but it's been hectic for me as a Christian to step in there every day. Because there's a lot of gossip, there's a lot of evil plans in people's hearts to bring each other down. So it's not just one or two people, it's like mostly, management mostly, and then it spills down to the people underneath because they're not Christians. So there's a lot of fools. And I've tried with all my might going back and like being content and try to distance myself because I'm a Christian and a truth seeker, I will speak the truth and they don't like that. So then I'm constantly bullied and set aside, which is also not nice. So how do you deal with a situation like that? Do you get out? Because getting out is not that easy. How do you deal with the management that are fools that has evil plans against you because you are standing up for what is right? Because in teaching, just to give example, they're not there for the children. They do things, I'm a teacher, they do things that it makes me angry because they are harming the children. And I'm a firm believer in Matthew 18 verse 6 that says, if you harm one of these little children, you're as good as a milestone around to making the ocean. So I take that very serious. And because I take that very serious, I'm a truth speaker. And I will fight for the children. But because of that, I'm bullied because of fools. So how do you deal with a situation like that?
Okay, so I don't know if I've got the full answer, but I haven't read this book, but I know there's a book that's out that says how to lead when you're not in charge. So I think that would be a good book to get. It is easily available, I think, at Goom. It's a Christian book, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. So the second thing on that is, I think you have to determine what's your life plan. You know, what's your life goals? Where are you as a person going to in life? And that will determine, if your life plan is that I want to be a major player in revolutionizing the educational system, then, you know, that's a place where you have to stick and work and whatever. But if your plan is, no, you know, it's just a matter of time, then I want to get out and I want to paint or, you know, whatever, it's just about money, I understand money is very important. I'm not ridiculing that, but what's the plan? You know, so if I'm not able to change that system, then at some stage I need to get out. If that system is going to break me and harm me because of the foolishness, then at some stage, now, you might not be able to get out today, next month, or a year. So then there's two ways. There's the one is, how do I cope with what I'm facing every day? I need to find ways on that. Reading a book, building my assets, getting equipped about how to do this. The second thing is, what's my long-term strategy? What's my long-term plan? You know, that's something you and your husband pray about. 2 years from now, I want to be able to move to somewhere else. Or my plan is I'm sending out my CV to a school where I think I would fit in and they would really want my abilities, you know. So then you must look at what's also the best for you and where you want to go. And I think that's the way that you can deal. It's maybe not the full answer, but it's some of it.
So get out eventually.
If you can't change it, yes. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, we have one here, and then we also have a lady there. Yeah, well, you're there, sir. Will you wait? Keep your question. You can go there.
Good afternoon. My question is, how can we use wisdom to cultivate gratitude, compassion, and forgiveness in our daily lives?
That's a very good question. The only thing is that I think that we are wise. We're not using wisdom. Because again, wisdom is the trellis. We build wisdom with training ourselves to forgive, practicing gratitude. All those virtues that you named, those are the things that we put on this trellis of wisdom. And that is wisdom. So what we use wisdom for is wisdom gives us that backbone. Remember, wisdom is a way of life that God smiles on. Okay? And that way of life is gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, all those things. So because we understand wisdom, and because we understand that we want to live a life that pleases God, we've got the trellis in our lives. That's why we put those things on there. So I'm just turning it around. I'm just saying that we don't use wisdom to forgive. It's because we forgive we are wise. It's because we say thank you with gratitude for the food. It's because we are wise. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zivu Chilande. My Hebrew name is Simon or Simon. I got two questions about habit. Number one, is it a habit when I'm doing something every day, or when I'm doing it too much every day? Number two, is there any good thing come from habit? Thank you.
Okay. Well, so I think you have good habits, you have bad habits. Okay, so a good habit will bring good things. A bad habit will bring bad things. So if my habit is, I don't know, drinking half a bottle of whiskey every night, it's not good. Okay? But if my habit is praying half an hour every day, then it is very good. Okay, so do I understand that right? Okay, so what was the first part of your question again?
I think the first part was that do you get what classifies as a habit? Is it something that you do every day, or is it something that you do frequently?
I think it's something that you do without thinking about it. That's what a habit is. You know, it just becomes some part of your life. So for instance, you know, if you want to cultivate a habit, let's say you're not a person, you're maybe new to the faith, and you want to cultivate the habit of praying regularly. So in the beginning, you have to do like reminders on your phone and, you know, put signs on the wall, say remember to pray, or if you open the fridge, there's prayer, you know, whatever. You have to do these things. But after 3 weeks, you take off the signs because it becomes habit. You don't think about it anymore. Like I said about the bells, you know, it become a habit. Oh, it's a change in my daily routine. Let me pray. So I think a habit is something that comes to a place where you don't think about it, you just do it. We must just be able to differentiate between which are the good habits, because a good habit needs to be established, a bad habit needs to be broken down. I mean, again, you hear of people that maybe they want to quit smoking. So some people will tell you, I mean, we've got a lady friend that told us the other night, I don't know how many years that she smoked, but in one moment, God set her free. Now that's a miracle. Okay, that's wonderful. But it doesn't work that way with everyone. Okay, for some people, you might say, okay, I'm not going to smoke 20 cigarettes today, I'm just going to smoke 15, and then 12, and then 9, and then 7, or sugar. That's the way. We broke the habit of sugar in our lives by just, reducing sugar a little bit in our coffee until the place where we don't use sugar anymore. So a bad habit needs to be, we have to train it out of our systems. A good habit we need to train into our systems until we don't think about it anymore, and it's just part of our lives. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question?
Hi everyone. I wanted to ask, how do you use wisdom to address certain situations, be it in families or basically your circle, without sounding very judgmental or very condescending?
Okay, so remember, wisdom, the best friend of wisdom is humility. Okay? So I've been in situations, even with family, where if you say the wrong thing, it's going to be difficult. So Proverbs says, a soft answer turns away the wrath. Okay, so we need to learn to, yes, that's true, but have you maybe considered this? There's a way. It's not always what we say. It's not always what we do. It's how we do it. Let me put it this way. It's always about how you do it and never about what you do. If my wife tells me, oh, you know what, you're the cutest baboon that I know, I'm going to smile and say, oh, thank you. It's not what she says, it's the how she says it. So I think that's important when you're dealing with family members, is the way you come across, the humility, the softness. And Proverbs gives us that. Start reading Proverbs a lot. And those answers comes out from there, about how to do that.